Hi my friends, welcome to another exciting one. Today we are doing another medicine bottle from scratch. So we'll learn how to model that detail that you see at the top of the bottle. We'll learn how to create the pills and then some rigid body simulation later on. So without much talks, open up your blender and let's get started. So as always, let's start from scratch. So I'll hit on general to start with my default cube and lights. Let's select everything, hit on X to delete it from our scene. Next, let's add in a reference image. So hit on X to go to our right photographic view. We do Shift plus A, image, reference. Then we'll locate where we saved our reference image. Link will be in the description below in case you want to follow along. So I'll add my reference image into the scene. I'll come to this side, check this, then uncheck this so that I'll be able to lock my reference image in place. Next, let's come to our image properties. Let's add in some opacity, and then let's uncheck the perspective, and then let's bring it always to front like this. So once our reference image is in place, let's model the top part. So this top part, that swirl that you see on top of every bottle, then when you remove the cap, that's why we are going to model, since it's the most difficult part of this model. So let's start with there. So with the top part, we are going to start with a plane instead of a cylinder. It will make sense very soon. So let's do Shift plus A, mesh, and then let's add in a plane. Right. So with the plane added, we can do R, Y, 90 degrees to rotate it on the 90 degrees like this. So with our plane, let's tab into edit mode. Make sure we have our edge mode selected. Select these 3 edges without this, and then we can hit on X and then delete these edges from our scene. Right. So once we have this, let's add in a screw modifier to create that cylindrical shape we are looking for. So let's go to our modifiers tab, add modifier, generate, and then let's add in a screw modifier. Right. So once we added the screw modifier, it's working, but then the axis is on the wrong one and it's creating some weird shape. So let's see how we can fix that. So we'll come to our axis and then we change it to X, and now you can see we have a cylindrical shape, but still this is not what we want. So let's come to our screw and then let's add 2 meters. First when we added the plane, it was 2 meters by 2 meters. So this length from here to here is 2 meters, right? So we want to offset it so that the second screw starts at the bottom of this point. That's why we added 2 meters here. So now if I scroll, you can see, but the exact number is 2 meters depending on the length of this plane, right? So once we have that, we can add iteration, make it 3, so that we have 3 iterations like this, right? So with this in place, we can come to our screw modifier and then we can hit on apply to apply our screw. Now after we've applied our screw, if we hit on tab and go into edit mode, this is what we have, right? So let's quickly select everything, hit on S and then Z to scale it on the Z axis like this, right? So next, let's add in some loop cut at the middle. So Control plus R, then let's add 1 loop cut at the middle like this. Then we can do Control B to bevel our loop cut. So we have something like this, right? We can still select everything, S to scale it down even more. So this is going to be the top part of our bottle. So once we have this, we can hit off on M and then merge by distance, right? So if you take a look at this bottom part, you can see we have removed 17 vertices, right? So let me go back once again and make sure I have my point mode selected. And if we select this point, you will think they are together, but they are not. So if I hit on G, you can see it's separated, right? In this point as well, right? So let's try and merge them. So let's go back, A to select everything, M, and then merge by distance. Then we have removed 17 vertices. So we've merged all those vertices together. So now if I select this and hit on G, you can see they are merged together nicely, right? So let me go back. Yeah, so that's what we are looking for. Let's see how we can make this part. Let's see how we can create this part, this top part, and then the bottom part to fill those parts, right? So let's select our edge select mode, alt click to select this entire edge here, right? and then hold shift and then click to deselect this part here, and then we can do E for extrusion to extrude it like this. Right, so once we've extruded it like this, let's straighten it up on the Z axis. So we can do S for scale and then Z and then 0 to straighten it up on the Z axis like this. Then we can do G, Z to bring it down to somewhere here. Let's do the same thing at the bottom part. I think something is wrong. Let's go back a little bit. So once we have this selected, let's do E and then extrude it on the Z axis, and then SZ0 to straighten it up like this, and then we can do G to bring it down to something like this. Right, let's do the same thing at the bottom part. So alt click to select this entire part, hold shift to deselect this part, EZ to extrude it down, and then SZ0 like this. Then we can do G to bring it down, so we have something like this, right? So next, we are still having the same issue we had earlier on. So if I hit on 1 to go to my point select mode, and I select this point and I hit on G, you can see they are not separated, they are not together. So let's see how we can fix this to bring everything together nicely. So let me go back. Then next, let's select our face select mode, select this face, and then go back to our edge select mode, then hold shift, click, 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 so that we have only this edge selected. Then let's right click, and then we can subdivide this edge, right? So I'll pop my subdivision menu here, then I'll increase the number of cuts to 3, right? So now if I go back to my point select mode, you can see we've created, if you take a look at it, we've created 3 extra points like this. So we have 1 point here, 1 point here, and then 1 point here, right? So if I select this point G, you can see where this point is. So let's bring these points as close to this point, and then this point as close to this point, and then this as this. So we can hold on double G to bring this close, select this double G, bring this close, and then do the same thing here, double G to bring this close like this, right? So once we have this, let's come to this part and then do the same thing. So I'll select this, edge select mode, shift, deselect all these parts, right? So that we have this point selected, right click, subdivide, and then we add number of cuts, we set it to 3. Now if we jump back to our point select mode, we have 3 points like this. So I'll select this point, double tap G to slide, bring it close to this point as possible, select this G to bring it close to this point, and then select this, double tap G to bring it close to this point as possible. So once we have this done, we can hit on A to select everything, and then M, and then merge by distance, right? So if you take a look at our merge by distance, we have only 3 vertices removed. So let's increase the merge distance a bit, right? So once we increased it, you see it have removed 8 vertices, meaning it have merged everything for us nicely. So now if I select my point select mode once again, and I hit on G, you can see it's completely merged together. Let me select this point, G, you can see it's completely merged together. So that's what we are looking for. Next, let's hit on A to select everything, then S to scale it down a little bit more like this, right? So once we have a scale down like this, we can now check our reference image. So let me hit on X, and then let's bring this up to where our reference image is, and then let's scale it down, then maybe scale it up a little bit like this, right? So this is the top part. Then next, let's extrude that part we are looking for. So I'll select this, hold alt click to select this entire ring like this, and then we can do alt plus E, and then extrude along normals like this. So this was what we were looking for, with all this hassle, just this one, right? So if I hit on slash to go back, this is what we have. Then we can do control plus 2 to add 2 level of subdivision to create this nice detail at the top, right? So let's jump into edit mode once again. I see we have some weird shading here, but we're going to leave it like that. I think it's fine. Select this and then hit on G to bring it back like this so that I can ease the transition a little bit. Do the same thing here, bring it back and inside like this, right? Just to ease the transition to make everything look nice and beautiful. So once we have this, the most difficult part is done. Now let's jump back into our X view to see our reference image, whether we are doing the right thing. So now we are done with the top part. Let's focus on the body of our bottle. Right. So at the moment, if you select this, we have our reference, our origin point right at the middle. So let's quickly reset it. So with the body's object selected, come to our reference image and then let's set origin to geometry so that our reference image will be set right in the middle like this. Next, let's hit on X to go to our right orthographic view. Then let's scale it down a little bit like this until it's matching our reference as close as possible. So once it's scaled, we can do Ctrl+A and then we can apply our scale. Next, let's hit on tab to jump into edit mode. Alt click to select this ring here, and then we can do E to extrude it down till we have something like this, and then E to extrude it down once again to here, right? So this is where we are. We can go back and then we can do E once again for extrusion. Once we extrude it, we can hit on S to scale. So I will scale it out like this, right? Now we can extrude it down. So let's go back. Then E for extrusion to extrude it down. Move it down till we are at the bottom of our bottle. And then we can come back to E, S to scale, E, S to scale. And then once we are here, we can go to our faces and then we can do grid fill to fill it in with our grid, right? Let's just play with the offset till it's filling nicely like this. So basically, if I hit on tab, this is what we have so far. This is the bottle, but because of our subdivision, it's looking a little bit weird. So let's add in some bevel to fix everything, to make everything look nice. So I'll hit on tab to go back into edit mode. Alt, make sure we have our edge mode selected. Alt click to select this entire edge, and hold shift alt click to select this edge as well. Then we can do control. No, first let's start with the bottom part. So alt click to select that edge, Ctrl+B to add in a bevel. Let's scroll our mouse wheel 3 times so that we can add 3 levels of bevel like this. Tab out of edit mode. It's looking nice. Let's do the same thing at the top part. Alt click, Ctrl+B, add in a bevel. At the top part, we're going to make it a little bit sharp like that. So tab into edit mode and then let's add Ctrl+R, add in a loop cut here. Now we have something like this, right? Then next, once we are here, alt, make sure we have our face select mode active. Alt click to select this entire face, I to insert it inside, and then we can do alt E for extrude along normals, and then we can extrude it out nicely like this, right? So that we have nicely like this. So our bottle is mainly done. So let's jump into edit mode. A to select everything, and then we can do alt E, extrude along normals to extrude it inside like this nicely. Tab out of edit mode, and this is what we have. So we've created some thickness inside our bottle like this. Nice. So next, let's quickly focus on the creating the cap, which is going to be fairly simple. Tab into edit mode, and then let's alt click. Yes, alt, make sure we have our edge select mode active, and let's alt click to select this entire ring here, and let's do shift+D to create a duplicate. Right click to place the duplicate in place, and then let's hit on P to separate by selection, right? Let's tab back, and then let's quickly rename our files. So let's select the bottle, double click, and then rename it as bottle, and then let's select this, rename it as cap like this, right? So with the cap selected, Let's hit on tab to go back into edit mode. Alt click to select everything. Let's bring it up a little bit and then go back into edit mode, and then let's add in some extrusion. So let's do E for extrude on the X axis, on the Z axis like this. Let's turn on our wireframe so that we can see what we are doing, right? So at this point we can hide our empty, we don't need it. Yeah, so this is what we want, like this, right? Yeah, so let's just extrude it up a little bit, like this, and then let's fill it inside, right? So let's hide our, go back to our solid shading view, E extrude, S to scale, E extrude, S to scale, and then we can fill it with our grid fill once again, right? So let's alt click this ring, Control B to create a bevel nicely like this. Right click, shade it smooth, slash to isolate it, and then select, tab into edit mode, select everything, Control Alt plus E, and then extrude along normals, so that we can extrude it inside like this to add in some thickness. We can hide our subdivision so that we can see what we are doing. So I'll bring this out like this, so we have something like this. Tab out of edit mode, into edit mode, back once again, then alt click, adding a loop cut right here, alt control plus R, adding a loop cut here to tighten everything up nicely like this. So slash to bring everything back, and then this is what we have. So to add in our material, let's go to our X and let's unhide our reference image. So our materials, you can see, start from somewhere here to here, right? So let's create that geometry that we are going to use to unwrap our material. So let me hide it once again, and then I'll quickly save my file. So Control S, and then I'll save it just in case. So save your file, and then let's continue. So let's select the bottle. Let's hit on tab to go into edit mode, and then Control plus R to add in some loop cuts here like this, nicely like this, right? So once we have these loop cuts added, we can do Control, we can make sure we have our face select mode active, Alt click, Alt shift click to select this entire edge like this. Then we can do Control plus D to create a duplicate, right? And then hit on P for separate, and then separate by selection, right? So once we've separated this, we can jump out of edit mode, and then if you take a look at our outliner, you can see we have bottle 1 and then bottle 2. So let's double click on the bottle 2 and then rename it to label like this, right? So let's select our label, and then let's hit on S for, let's select our label. So with our label selected, you can see the point of origin is somewhere here. So now if we try to scale, we're going to scale based on this side, right? So let's quickly reset it. Let's go to object, set origin, and then origin to geometry, right? So now the point of origin is right at the middle. Now let's scale it down on the Z axis to something like this, right? Nice. Now let's tab into edit mode, select everything, and then let's scale it by holding shift. So we are scaling it a little bit till it's a little bit outside like this. It's a little bit outside like this, right? I think it's looking nice. So next, let's quickly set up our materials. So I'll drag this up here and then change this to our shader editor like this, and then let's add in an HDRI. So I'll change this object to world. Then once we are here, we select this background, and then we can do Control plus T to add in. So once we do Control T, we add in environment texture, which is mapped to generated, right? So we're going to plug our HDRI to this. If this doesn't happen, just go to your preference add-ons, and then search for your node Wrangler and make sure it's checked, right? Then just select the background, Control T, and then you have your environment texture. So once we have our environment texture, let's hit on open, and then just grab an HDRI online. Any HDRI would work. just pop it inside, and then we have our HDRI into our scene, right? So to see our lighting and materials, let's go to our render properties, change the render engine to cycles, then change the device from CPU to GPU compute. And then next, let's just check on here so that we can see what we are looking at, right? So this image that we see is the HDRI that we added, so I can quickly change it to something else, and you can see the image will change. So the HDRI is the thing that is giving us the lighting that we need, right? So let's quickly, in our render properties, let's just hide the HDRI. We're not interested in the image, we're just interested in the lights the HDRI is providing. So once we are here, let's start adding in our materials. So first, let's start with the label. So I'll select the label, change this to object, and then hit on new to add in a new material, right? So we have our principal BSDF material that we can easily change color, and then you can see our label color will change as well. But then let's plug in our label texture. So I'll select this, then Control plus T to add in an image texture, which we will use for the labeling, right? So I'll hit on open, then locate where I save my label, the first label. I'm going to leave a link in the description below in case you want to follow along. So I'll double click to hit on open, and then our label will be added into our scene. So as you can see, our label is looking a little bit weird right now. So let's quickly go to our UV editing tab, and then let's try and fix our label. So UV editing, and then with our label selected, let's select everything and hit on unwrap to see how it is unwrapping our label. So if you can see, it's unwrapping it in a very weird shape. If I change this to our look dev mode, this is how it is being unwrapped. So let's solve that, right? So I'll select everything, make sure I have my edge mode active, select this edge, just take a look at any edge at all will work. So you can either select this edge or click, select all these edges here. You just alt click to select this edge, and then hit on U, and then we can go to mark seam to mark it as seam, right? So it's going to demarcate it by using this red line. So once you have this seam marked, we can hit on A to select everything, U, and then we can do unwrap, and then it's going to be unwrapped nicely for us like this, right? So once we have this unwrapped like this, you can select everything, rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees, then G to position it in place, and then scale it up until it fills our bottle nicely, right? So you can tap to see what we have. I think it's looking nice and beautiful, right? So that's it for the label. We can jump back to our layout to see what we have, right? I think it's looking nice. So let's focus on creating the plastic part of this, which is this bottle here. So let's select the bottle, hit on new to create a new material. Let's set the transmission weight to 1, decrease the roughness to almost 0 so that we have some reflection like this, and then let's change this to a pure white like this, right? So it's looking nice and simple, beautiful. So that's it for that one as well. Let's select this one, the top part, and then let's hit on new to add in a new material. It's going to be a basic material. Let's decrease the roughness a little bit, and then let's make it BP a little bit, add a little bit of color to it like this, right? So we are almost done with our label, but before we continue, let's check on one thing and make sure all our normals are facing the right way. So I'll quickly come to this side, and then I'll check face orientation, and I have to make sure everything is blue, which means all our normals are facing the right way. So I'll hide. In case yours, let's say select this A, shift N. In case yours is looking red like this, all you have to do is select that particular and then hit on shift N, and then it will just recalculate the normals and everything will be looking at blue, nice and blue. So once we have that, let's just uncheck face orientation. Then we have everything looking nice and beautiful as intended. So if you go to this, you'll be able to see what we have done so far. So we have our bottle, we have our label, we have our bottle, and then the cap, right? If I hit on G, you can see we have our nice detail here as well. Next, let's see how we can create the pill and then use the pill to fill our bottle up and then create our final render. Before we do that, let's select everything and make sure, hold shift click to make sure this is the, let me go to my solid shading view to make sure this is the active object. Then I'll hit on Control P to parent everything to this bottle, right? So now this, and then the label is parented to the bottle. So if I hit on G, I'll be able to move the bottle and then everything will be moved along with it, right? So once we do that, we can select everything once again, then hit on M and then move everything to collection. So we'll name it to bottle collection like this. Great, right? So now we have a single collection like this, which holds the bottle and then everything, the cap and then the label, everything is inside nicely. Nice organization, right? So once we have the bottle collection like this, we can uncheck this and then check it to bring it back into our scene. So let's uncheck it and then let's focus on the pill, right? So we come back to it later on. So once we uncheck it, we can do Shift A, mesh, and then we can do round cube, right? So in case you don't have this, you have to go to your edit, preference, add-ons, and then you search for extra mesh object and make sure you have it checked. So we have to get extension extra mesh object, make sure you have it installed, and then you'll be able to have access to that operator. So let's do Shift A, round cube, and then we select our round cube. So once we have our round cube selected, if we come to the operator preset and toggle it, we can have a capsule here. So I'll just select on the capsule. Then we decrease the number of arc to, let's say, 4. I think 4 will do. We are going to add in our subdivision surface to make everything look smooth and beautiful anyway. So we decrease it to 4 like this, and then you can tab, right click, and then shade it smooth. So once we select it, right click, shade it smooth, and then we can add Ctrl+1 to add one level of subdivision. Or if you come here, add modifiers, generate, you'll be able to add one level of subdivision like this, right? So once we have this, and tab back into edit mode, and then add in a couple of loop cuts. So we add in 2 loop cuts like this, then Ctrl R, add one loop cut at the middle, Ctrl B to bevel that loop cut like this, right? So once we have this bevel, we are just creating the detail at this part so that it will look as if one of the objects is intersecting with the other. So alt click to select this edge, and then we can do S to scale it up. Now before we do that, let's come back. Let's just add one loop cut at the middle, Ctrl+P to bevel, right? So once we have this bevel, alt click to select this, and then S to scale it up like this, right? So once we have this scaled up, Ctrl R, and then let's bring one loop cut right here, and then Ctrl R, then let's add one loop cut at the middle like this. So if we tab out of edit mode, this is what we have, right? Then next we can add in a loop cut here, and then a loop cut here to tighten everything up, right? So if you take a look at it, it will look as if one object is intersecting into the other, but it's all fake, right? So once we have this, let's just quickly go to our shading mode, and then let's add in a material to it. So let's change this to object, then let's add in a new material, and let's change the color of the material to something like this. And then let's add in some roughness, make it a little bit rough and reflective like this. Nice and beautiful. So once we have this in place, let's bring back our bottle, then let's bring our pill, let's rename it to a pill, then let's bring it up. So G, Z, bring it up like this, then S to scale it down to a roughly nice to a smaller size as compared to our bottle. So just scale it down to get a small size. That will make sense when they are filled inside a bottle. So proportionally, that will make sense proportionally. So I'll scale it up to something like this. I think this looks fine. I'll go back to my solid shading mode, and then we can do Ctrl+A to apply our scale. Right. So now we have our scale applied. Have everything ready for our simulation. So now let's see how we can create more of this pill, and then let's see how we can add the simulation and then fill this up with into our bottle. Right. So to create more of this pill, first we have to add in some array modifiers. So first we add one array, then we increase the count to 2 like this. Right. So on the x-axis, let's just increase it to bring a little bit of spacing like this. And then next, let's add another array. So generate, then we add another array, but the second array, we are not going to affect the x, we're going to affect the z. So we change the z to 1.2, let's see, so that we can bring it up like this, right? So something like this. Then we can increase the count to, let's say, 10 or maybe 11, right? So once we have it as tall as this, we can add an extra array again. So let's go to generate, then add in an array, and this array we are going to move the y. So we make the x 0, and then move the y as this like this, right? So if you take a look at this, we have moved the y-axis, right? And then we can add one more count so that we have this number of pills. I think this number of pills will be able to fill in our container, right? So once we have this number of pills, next what we have to do is to apply all our arrays so that everything is fixed. So let's come to our array, then we can hit on apply, and then apply, so that we apply everything. And now this is just one object pill, right? So let's first separate everything so that all of them will become individual objects, right? So with everything selected, we can hit on tab to go into edit mode, and then hit on A to select everything. Then we can hit on P to separate by loose part. So once we hit on P, now we can, if you come to our outliner tab, you can see we have a lot of pills created here, since all of them are now single pill. So if I hit on tab, you can see we have all these pills as single objects. But if you take a look at it carefully, all of them have their origin point right here. So if I select this, you can see its origin point is here. If I hit G to move it, you can see where the origin point is positioned. So let's quickly reset the point of origin for all of the pills. So I'll drag to select all of the pills. Let me just bring this down so that we can see what we're doing. So I drag everything, go to object, set origin, and then origin to geometry. Now you can see that yellow dot is now in the middle of each and every pill that we created, right? So with this, so now let's see how we can make all of them share the same object data so that we'll be able to save some power later on when we try to do our rigid body simulation. So at this point, as it stands, if I select this, right, and then select one point like this and hit on G to move it, you can see it's only this pill here that is moving. So all the rest of the pills are not moving along with it, because individual pill have individual data. So let me do Control Z. Then let's see how we can let all of them share the same data, so that render do not need to process individual pill when we are doing the rigid body later on. So I'll go back, and then I'll jump out of edit mode, and then I'll drag to select everything. Make sure one of these objects is just the active object, so it can be any object, it doesn't really matter since all of them are the same. So once we do that, we can go back to object, link transfer, link/transfer data, and then we can do link object data. So once we do that, now all of these pills share the same data. So if I select one pill, tab into edit mode, and then I hit on G to move, you can see all of the pills will move at the same time. So every edit I do to one is going to affect all of them, since all of them are sharing the same data. So I will do Control Z to go back one step. So now let's tab out of edit mode, and then let's see how we can add our rigid body. So I'll select this pill. I'll select any of the pills. So I'll select this pill here. So first, let's just drag to select all the pills, and then hit on M. Then we can hit on new collection, and then we can save it to pills collection like this to create a new collection of pills, right? So once we do that, I can select this pill here, and then let's add our rigid body. So go to our physics tab, and then hit on rigid body to add in our rigid body simulation. So now once we add in our rigid body, it's going to ask us the shape of our rigid body. So let's click here. Luckily we have a capsule here. So if I click here and then I select capsule, you can see we have a capsule which is wrapped around our rigid body, which is exactly what we have. Luckily for us enough, this object is a capsule already, right? So once we do that, let me change this to my timeline, and then I'll hit on play. You can see our capsule is falling down. All right. So now with this capsule selected, let's drag to select everything, all the rest of the capsule, and make sure this is the active object. So this is the active object like this. And let's go to object, rigid body, and then we can do copy from active. So once we hit on copy from active, all of them are going to copy from this one active capsule body. So all of them are going to copy the settings of this one active capsule body. So now if I hit on play, you can see everything is falling down. So let's go back. Right, now let's select this cap here. Let me just toggle this, and then let's hide it for a minute so that we can have our bottle like this, right? So now let's select our bottle, and then let's add in a rigid body. Let's change the type from active to passive. Then let's change the shape from convex hull to a mesh, right? Now let's hit on play and see what we have. So now if we hit on play, you can see everything is being loaded into our bottle nicely like that, right? Let's go back and let's hit on play once again. You can see everything is being loaded into our bottle nicely. Let's go back once again, and then now we can just so there's two ways of doing this. We can just drag to select this, and then maybe bring this up a little bit like this, so that everything will fall inside nicely, right? So we fill our cap. So take your time and arrange everything till everything is falling inside the bottle nicely like that, right? And then hit on play once again to see nicely. So we have some content inside the bottle. That's the most important thing. So once we do that, we can come back, and then let's pick our simulation just to one frame, which is the end where everything is inside our bottle, right? So let's go back, and then let's select our entire pill. So I'll go to pill, right click, and then do select object to select the entire object, all the pills inside our pill collection. And then we can come to our object, go to rigid body, and then we can do bake to keyframe, right? So we hit on bake to keyframe, then we can set the number of keyframes we want to bake. So where we want to start, we will start at 1249 to 250, just a single keyframe that we are looking for. So if I hit on OK, you can see our keyframe is baked. So now this entire part is just a single, all the rigid body is now baked to just a single keyframe, right? So we can come to this section like this, right? Then all those ones falling, we can just deselect, click and drag to select everything, and then hit on X to delete them, since we don't need them in our scene. Now if we go back to our render view, this is what we have, right? So our pill is inside our bottle, nicely and simple. So I think everything is done. So you can uncheck this and then unhide our cap to bring back our cap and then our pill, and everything is nice and beautiful. So quickly, let's set up our scene and then render our final image, right? So once we have this, we can go back to our solid shading view. Let me click and drag. Let me click here and drag to bring back this window. Now hit on here so that we lock our camera in place. So I'll set my camera, lock it in place like this. And we can change this to the render view so that we can see what we are doing like this. Right, and then we can set up our scene. So to set up our scene, let's do Control Shift A, then let's add a cube, and then G. At this point, please feel free to play with it till you find what works best for you. It's going to be a freestyle. The hard part is already done, so just play with the composition. Keep on playing with the composition. Go to the top part, then G to bring this to somewhere here. Then maybe scale this out like this, and then rotate it like this, and then G to position it somewhere here, right? Right, so that we have a very nice composition like this. Let's play with it. Let's add in. So with this selected, Shift Control plus A, and then let's apply our scale. And then let's add in a little bit of bevel. So generate bevel, and let's just add to the level of bevel like this. Then right click and then shade auto smooth to give it a smooth shading like that. Then next, let's add in Control A, add in a plane, which will be our backdrop. You'll bring it at the back, R to rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees, and then S to scale it up until it covers our entire shape like this. Right, nice and beautiful. So next, let's select everything inside our pill. So select object. So we've selected everything inside our pill like this, and then we hold shift click to select our bottle. Now let's remove the cube out of this. Let's just select all the objects inside, and then control click to select our bottle and make sure our bottle is the active object, and then we can do control plus P to parent, and then we parent it to keep transform like this. Now if we move our bottle, everything, all the pill will move with it at the same time. Let's unparent this. Let's unlink. Sorry. So let's select the pill and then shift click to select our bottle, and then we can do control P to parent and keep transform, right? So once we do that, if we move the bottle, the pill will move along with it as well, right? So now once we have that, we can drag to select everything, so the entire bottle and then the pill, or we can just select the bottle, right click and then select hierarchy to select everything. Then we can do shift plus D to create a duplicate like this, right? So let's bring the duplicate back to somewhere here like this, looking nice and beautiful. And then let's select the duplicate. Let's drag this, change this to our shader editor, and then let's quickly plug in the second label. So let me just double click. You see it's affecting all of them. So with the duplicate selected, let's hit on plus to add in a new label. And let's select and let's double click to pop the new label inside like that. It's looking nice. Let's select a backdrop and then let's add a material. Then hold, make it a little bit reflective, hold and do Control L to link material so that the platform and then the backdrop shares the same material like that. Nice and beautiful. So next we can add in some lighting if we want. So let's do Shift A, add in a light, an area light, and then let's maybe position it to this side, rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees, rotate it on the y-axis like this, then maybe scale it up, right, and then scale it up like this, and then let's increase the power of our light. So let's set the power to, let's say, 1,000. 1,000 is too harsh, maybe a 500 will do. So 500, right, like this. Maybe 300 will do, right? So something like this, just to add in some lighting here. Just play with it till you find what you are looking for. It's looking nice, beautiful. You can also download new HDRIs and then change them to see what works for you, right? I think this is looking beautiful. Or maybe play with it, till you find what works best for you. Next, let's add in some pill and let's position them here. So I'll just select any random pill inside and then Shift D to create a duplicate, then bring it here. Let's go to our right orthographic view, make sure it's lying on the ground nicely like this, and let's do Shift D to create a duplicate, G, bring it out. Now let's rotate it like this, then G to bring it down till it's touching. Just to showcase our pill, right? So once we have the pill here, because of how we baked the tint with the keyframe, if we go to our timeline, we have to make sure we set, if we move, you can see if we move our timeline, our pill will move back in place. So let's just do Ctrl Z to make sure it's set here, and then we can just do K and then add a location and rotation keyframe right here, right. So we add a location and rotation keyframe here, then just select these keyframes at the bottom here, then delete them from our scene. Then we can just select this, then delete them from our scene. So now it will remain right here, right? So because we did the big keyframes earlier on, all of these pills will have this keyframe, right? So if we select, we can just select all of the pills and then just delete these keyframes here, and then everything will be okay, right? Do the same thing for this as well, and then just delete the keyframes and then everything will be fine, right? So once we have this, you can just select these two, then G to bring it back here like this till we have something like this. Next, maybe the final thing is to add, select our camera, and let's add in depth of field. The depth of field object, let's select our label like this, and then we can increase the f-stop to add in some shallow depth of field, which will make everything look nice and beautiful, right? So once we are all set, you can always play with your composition to find something that works best for you. So once we are all set and ready for render, we can go to our render settings, locate our color management tab, and then change the look to high contrast to get a little bit punchier image, and then we can do our final render. So we can do Ctrl S and then hit on render to render our final image to see what we have. So this is what I got. I hope yours will be different and nice. Thank you very much for watching. I know my tutorials are very long, but yeah, I just want to take my time to explain everything so that everyone will be able to follow along and everyone will get it. So if it's not for you, that's fine, but if you stick with it, we'll be able to achieve some nice and beautiful results. Thank you very much. If you love the videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next one. So in the next tutorial, we will try and animate these bottles and create some nice product animation. So please don't forget to stick along with it. It will come probably the next day, hopefully. Yeah, so see you on the next one, which will be a very cool one, the animation. Peace out.